You got it. Good evening, everyone. Today is an important day. It is your best friend's 62nd birthday. And so you're ready for work. You've got the balloons, the flowers, breakfast, everything ready. She steps off the elevator, walks down the hall, opens the door, and everyone yells, surprise. And she walks right past you. You are all standing there stunned. She walks into the CEO's office, sits down at her desk, and says, I'm retiring. I'd like to start my pension. CEO leans back. Are you aware that by starting your pension now, you're reducing it by 30%? I know. Did you know that by claiming now, you're limiting your spouse's options? I know. Are you aware your pension is tax exempt in California and there may be additional federal tax advantages you're giving up? I'm aware. She asks one more time, are you sure? Her response, very. Ladies, how did she get there? How did she gain the clarity and confidence to answer those questions without hesitation? Because there are a lot of questions. How will she handle health insurance in retirement? What should they do with their rental properties? What's the most efficient way to gift to the kids now or later? She's working 40, sometimes 60 hours a week. She's helping her kids get started, grandbabies on the way, just settled her parents' estate. And oh, yeah, she's also trying to plan the next vacation. There are a million moving pieces, and making the right choice, it's tough. No doubt about it. Ladies, we know you're rock stars. You wouldn't be here tonight if you weren't. So, how did your friend do it? She didn't guess. She didn't wing it. She had help. She had a financial plan. And yes, she read our book too. But more importantly, she had a plan built around five key areas, a framework that gave her clarity, confidence, and control. That's how she walked past the surprise party and into her next chapter. I'm Kenneth Hamilton. I'm one of the managing members of Mission Financial Planners. I'm joined by my partners, Jason DeFoe and Matt Donaghue, and we're here to talk about Social Security. And everything we talk about is about Social Security. But before we do that, I want to focus on three key items: our why, my why, and how the five pillars of financial planning can truly change your life. We created Mission Financial Planners for people like you, motivated, thoughtful, driven people who wanted to make informed choices. Each of us had our own path into this industry, different backgrounds, different experiences, but the three of us, we kept on seeing the same gaps. People working with advisors for years, but no clear Social Security strategy. No real conversations about elder care for their parents, let alone a plan for themselves. Retirement accounts were invested, but no cohesive plan tying everything together. You, the client, needing to bring these topics up for discussion and not the other way around. Good people, good intentions, but no one helping them think through this next and final chapter of life. And there are a lot of decisions to make. And that's the practical reason Mission exists. But on a personal level, I did this for people like my mother. Uh, Single mom, raising three kids. She started her own business. Anything she set her mind to, she accomplished. But the great equalizer still exists: time and energy. No one can be everything to everyone. She didn't have a Mission Financial Planners. She didn't have someone helping her navigate the tax code, helping her think through retirement income, helping her structure an estate plan. She did an incredible job. And I know each of you have too. But if there's something more you want to accomplish, if there's a goal you haven't quite mapped out, if there's a gap you know exists but haven't had time to address it, that's where we step in. I'm here to help people have more, whatever more means to you. More clarity, more confidence, more time, more options, more peace. That's our why. And that's exactly why we wrote the book, because over the years we realized something. Financial planning shouldn't feel scattered. It shouldn't be a bunch of disconnected advice, random accounts, or one-off decisions. It should be proactive. It should be a framework. So we built one, the 5 pillars of financial planning: income, investments, insurance, tax planning, estate planning. Income is the foundation. How is money coming in today and in retirement? Pensions, Social Security, rental income, business income. How does it all flow together? Investments support that income, not just growth for growth's sake, but positioned intentionally to create flexibility, protection, and opportunity. Insurance protects the plan because the fastest way to derail everything is an unexpected health event, long-term care need, disability, or premature death. Tax planning weaves through all of it. When you draw income, where you draw income, how you claim your Social Security, all of those things matter and interconnect. And estate planning makes sure everything you've built transfers the way you want to the people you love in the most efficient way possible. And here's the thing: Social Security touches every single pillar. It affects your income stream. It impacts how much you need from your investments. It influences your tax picture. It affects survivor benefits for your spouse. It plays into estate decisions and legacy planning. Claim it too early, that changes everything. Delay strategically, that changes everything too. It's not just a government check. It's a lever inside a much bigger plan. The book walks through this framework, not in theory, but in a way that helps you see the pieces connect. Because when the pieces connect, confidence follows. And that's when you get to sit down at the CEO's desk and say, I'm ready. And with that, Mr. Matt, floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everyone, again for making time to join us tonight. Let's jump into the main topic: Social Security planning for women. So one of the big questions we get is why women? Why are 3 guys from Texas reaching out to women to proactively talk about this? Ken talked about his mother's experience. My mother's experience was in some ways strikingly similar, as I know Jason's mother was as well. Um, but the reality is that a lot of women just purely are not as confident about retirement as men are. You can see this chart on here. Women are nowhere near as confident about the financial aspects of retirement. And when you look at some of the greatest fears that people have about retirement, you can see the top 4 or 5: outliving my investments. What is going to happen to my Social Security? What's going to happen to my health? Can I meet basic financial needs? And then, of course, cognitive decline, which unfortunately comes for a lot of us, right? So when we think about this, you can see women are more concerned about these things than men are. And I'm never really sure why a lot of men don't take this quite as seriously as women do, but it's what happens for some reason. Um, Part of the reason as well that we proactively reach out is because our industry really historically has done a terrible job of reaching out and taking you seriously in this conversation. And I do believe that is part of the driver of why women are more concerned, because a lot of advisors like me don't take the time to make sure you're heard and that they don't check in with you when your spouse is at the table. As an example, and just by a show of hands, if you could, how many of you have experienced something like this? You're going to make a financial decision of some kind. You happen to have a male companion with you. Could be a spouse, could be a friend, brother, dad, doesn't matter. Whoever, coworker, doesn't matter. But you've got this male companion with you. The person who's supposed to be guiding you through this decision starts talking to him. instead of you. Raise your hands if you've experienced that at some point in your life. I'm watching all the hands go up. Loaded question. How did that make you feel? I experienced it, believe it or not, in my own kitchen 2 years ago. We had our backsplashes done, we had our countertops redone, and my wife works from home. She's an attorney. She was a geologist in the field for 9 years before she became an attorney. She's educated. She's very successful in her own right. She doesn't need me, right? And she's also very detail oriented. And so she asked the backsplash guy who was doing the tile a question. I don't even remember what the question was. I happened to be standing in the kitchen on the other side of the kitchen. This guy actually turned his back to my wife and started talking to me. And I just looked at him and I'm like, brother, you just blew it. I didn't ask that question. She did. Why are you talking to me? And he hasn't been welcome back since. So, we see this, right? We see it, unfortunately, in a lot of different aspects of life. But it does translate into some very stark realities for women. One is wage discrimination is a real thing. Women do not earn as much as men do. Just a simple thing. If you happen to have a child at some point in your life, maybe you took 9 or 12 months off to recover, get back on your feet, whatever happens when you have a child. And I have 2 kids, so right, it goes all over the place. But maybe you took a year off from work when you had that child. That's a year of less income. That's a year of missed out promotions. That translates into lower lifetime earnings, in addition to the actual age or wage discrimination that occurs. Add all that up, that turns into lower pensions. Big hint, guess what Social Security is? It's just a pension. It's a federal government pension. You contribute, your employer contributes. They pay you out based on a formula. It's just how every pension in the country works. That one just happens to be a federal pension. And then, ladies, you do a much better job of taking care of yourselves than most men do. You can see any number of reels, highlight videos of men out there doing really stupid things and then being surprised that we don't live as long as women do. So, lower lifetime earnings, lower pensions, longer lives. Sometimes people interpret all that as, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to work forever. Please don't take that out of, why we're reaching out. Some people have studied that and they found that if you can do these 4 things, pay down some debt, pad your retirement account. Of course, it's one, if you work another year, right, it's one less year of retirement. And then, of course, it boosts your Social Security benefit. That can have a really positive impact on your overall plan. But we also have a lot of people who retire at 55, right? They don't work till 70. They don't work till 65. They don't work till 60. They've done very well. They've been successful. They're retired. Okay. What do I do as an early retiree when it comes to Social Security? What if I am the person that wants to do all these things? Hey, great, go ahead, go right ahead. But hopefully, what you're taking out of this is Social Security does have a real value. One of our investment partners put out their 2026 guide to retirement, and they were showing some data in terms of some of the higher net worth households, how much Social Security can mean to that higher net worth household. And surprisingly, higher net worth households, Social Security can actually make up 15 to maybe 20% of your overall income in retirement. That might not sound like a lot, but it is a big percentage of overall income. So when we get to the value of Social Security, this is something that even if you've been tremendously successful in your career, you want to make a good decision about it because it will have an impact on your overall financial plan as you navigate retirement. So a couple things I want to point out. The biggest thing I want you to take away from this slide is not that, hey, in 30 more years, if you're getting $2,000 a month, you'll have received a total of about $1 million in Social Security benefits. That's not what I want you to take out of this slide. What I want you to take out of this slide is down here at the bottom where it says it assumes a 2% annual cost of living adjustment. That's right. Social Security does cost of living adjustments, and they've done it since the mid 70s. Cost of living adjustments are tied to the consumer price index for workers. Now, 10 years ago when I would teach this class and interest rates were zero, inflation was very low, people would complain that their Social Security check was actually going down. Well, why would your Social Security check go down? It wasn't because of negative inflation. It was simply that there were very minimal or no cost of living adjustments happening because inflation was so low, but your Medicare premiums will be deducted from your Social Security check once you turn 65. Well, Medicare doesn't follow the consumer price index for workers. Medicare tends to charge ahead at about a 5 to 5.5% inflation rate. So, in a really low inflationary environment, which hasn't existed for about 5 years now, you could actually see maybe your benefit looks like it's going backwards. It's because your Medicare premiums are increasing faster than the COLAs. But for the presentation, when you do your Social Security analysis with me and Ken, we will use a 2% cost of living adjustment. That is conservative. The average is closer to 2.5, but we want to be conservative in our assumptions when we do this type of analysis for people. It doesn't just mean $1 million in 30 years. Of course, the benefit grows over time as well. You can see the impact over 10, 20, or 30 years if you just averaged a 2% COLA with a starting benefit that was $2,000 a month. So it does have a good positive impact over a long retirement. I'm going to take you kind of quickly tonight because we could go for 3 or 4 hours, and I don't think anybody wants to hear us talk for 3 or 4 hours. But I'm going to take you through these 4 different rules and strategies. But before I do, I really want to point out one key thing. You as an individual, you only get one benefit at a time, just one. I can receive my benefit. I cannot receive a spousal benefit at the same time I'm getting my benefit. I can get my benefit. I cannot receive a survivor benefit at the same time I am getting my benefit. What that means is if you are married, when the first spouse dies, the smaller Social Security check will stop flowing into your household because even as a surviving spouse, you can only get one benefit paid out to you. So just keep that in mind. You cannot get 2 benefits paid out to you as an individual. The key questions you should be thinking about as you're wondering what your benefit is. The first thing is, what's your work record look like? Do you have at least 10 years? You may have heard the 40 quarters. Basically, if you get between $10,000 and $15,000 a year of earned income, you get 4 quarters. You need 40 quarters with Social Security to be able to qualify for a benefit on your own. Are you currently married? And if so, has your spouse started to receive their Social Security benefit? And what about prior marriages? But more importantly, how did the prior marriage end? Was it through death or was it through divorce? And the reason that's so important is the rules for you as the single person after that are very different depending on how the marriage ended. We'll take you through that tonight. Okay, again, depending on how you answer those questions, you're entitled to 1 of 4 benefits. And again, just please remember, you get 1 benefit at a time. Okay, definitions. So Ken talks with people about this. I know everyone heard me say this as well in our phone conversations we had. When you come to your Social Security analysis meeting, there's 2 pieces of information you really do need to bring for that to be a good use of your time. The first one is, what does Social Security say they're going to pay you at your full retirement age? So in other words, if you were born 1960 or later, what does Social Security say they're going to pay you at age 67? We do not need to know your Social Security number, okay? And that's your homework assignment for tonight, or between now and your next meeting, is log on to the Social Security website, pull the current statement, and it will show you at 67, this is the dollar amount they're projecting to pay you. That's the number we're looking for. That's the number we need. The other piece of information that we need is just what's your current age. We do not need your date of birth. We just need to know your current age. So I want to make sure everybody understands we need no personally identifiable information to be able to do that Social Security analysis. Okay. So 67 for most people on tonight's call is the age at which you qualify for 100% of your benefits. The benefit you get is technically called the primary insurance amount. I won't take you through the calculation, but one thing I do want you to remember is that when they do the calculation, they're looking for your best 35 years of income. and they just look for the best years. That's why it's important to make sure your work record is accurate. How do they get your work record? When you file your taxes, it takes the IRS about 3 to 6 months to send that information over to Social Security Administration, and then they go ahead and they update their records based on how you filed your taxes. What you'll see if you're working past full retirement age. So let's say you turned 67, you filed for Social Security, you kept working. Well, you can get your Social Security check, you can get your full paycheck. But if you're still working, you might notice your Social Security benefits going up at a faster rate than that cost of living adjustment I talked about. And the reason why is they're always checking your best 35 years of income. So that doesn't stop once you hit 67 or 70 or when you file. They keep checking it, and that can have a huge impact, especially for those of you who love what you do. Hey, wait till 67, take your benefit, work till 80. It's probably not work for you. You probably just love it, right? Keep going. Well, they're just going to keep recalculating your benefit because at the pinnacle of your career at 75, you're probably making a lot more than you did when you were flipping burgers in college. And that college year might get kicked out of that 35-year calculation. So primary insurance amount, that's the amount you get at your full retirement age. And all we need to know for your Social Security analysis is how old are you currently? And then what is the amount Social Security says they're going to pay you? The way you get that is create an account on the Social Security website, log in, pull your information. Okay, retirement benefits. Here's where you can get them, socialsecurity.gov/my account. They do have a very robust website, which has a ton of great information on it. So if you're one of those people who likes to do a lot of research, that's a great place to start. Okay, so I spent a lot of time talking about 67 and primary insurance amount, but your benefit really depends on the age at which you file. So you can take an income benefit, or I should say your own income benefit at as early as 62. Just know this, if you file at 62, you get a permanent reduction, which you can see on the screen here. You don't get 100% of your benefit, you get 70% of your benefit. And that decision will follow you all the way through until the end of life. Even if your spouse files later on and you try to get a spousal benefit, the fact that you filed early reduces your benefits. It reduces any spousal benefits you might try to get later. It also has the impact of reducing survivor benefits for your spouse. We'll talk more about that in a lot of detail to show you how that works. Okay, if you wait till after full retirement age, you can wait till after 70. There is no reason to wait beyond 70. Okay, no reason at all. But once you get to 70, the most you would get is 124% of your benefits. The people who wait till 70 are usually the people who come from families where there's a lot of longevity. The parents and the grandparents are in their 90s, still doing well, right? Age 70 to them does mean potentially another 30 to 35 years. However, that decision needs to be balanced within the context of your bigger picture. So remember I said, even for high net worth people, Social Security is only 15 to 20% of your income in retirement. Okay, where's the other 80 to 85% coming from? How is that structured? What are the tax implications of how that's structured? And I'll say this, we run into a lot of people who think that asset management in retirement is the same as it was when you were working. It isn't. Asset management in retirement, is it still important to grow? Absolutely. But it's equally important to provide income. And that's a different type of investing than most of you have experienced leading up to retirement. And again, how those portfolios are constructed, what are the income sources? It's going to vary from household to household. Sometimes it varies within couples in the household. And because as you know, if you've been with someone for a long time, you don't always agree on everything. And maybe you're structuring things in a way where you each kind of have your own pot. That's okay. That's okay. But waiting will get you the biggest benefit you can. It has a huge impact if you expect longevity. Okay. And of course, it has a bigger impact once you factor in cost of living adjustments. 2% on a bigger number is going to create a bigger number, right? That's just how it works. I come from one of those families where there is a lot of longevity. So just as an example, my dad's going to be 88 in July. My mom just turned 83. They are really doing well. They're still traveling a lot. They still fly. They still live at home, right? My mother's dad lived to be almost 97. My wife's family, both of her grandmothers are still alive in their mid 90s, and both are still living at home. So we have a lot of longevity for me and my wife. So when I look at a chart like this, what I'm taking out of it is, okay, hold on. If I have my $2,000 a month benefit and I file at 62, well, by the time I'm 90, you can see it where I got my mouse here. By the time I'm 90, I'm at about 2,400 a month. Okay, that's fine. But if I'd have filed at 70, I'm at 4,300 a month. 50,000 a year versus 25,000 a year. Big difference. My wife has also got her own career. She has a similar benefit. Now we're talking 100,000 a year from Social Security between the two of us. It's a different story, right? It's a different story. Longevity is something you need to think about. If you are someone who likes to dot your I's and cross your T's, and you're thinking about this, what you want to do is plan to live to be 105. That's one of the best things you can do when you're going through the planning. And we run into a lot of our competitors out there who will say, oh yeah, 20 years is good, 30 years is good, as whatever. No, let's have a conversation about it and find out what your family's experienced, what you're concerned about. Because the flip side of this is if you're really not concerned about this, okay, this is not going to influence your decision in terms of filing. Okay, so when to apply? If you apply early, you minimize the benefit. You apply late, you maximize the benefit. Make sure you're thinking about survivor benefits as well. Whoever has the bigger check, that is the person. If anybody's going to wait in the household, that is the person who needs to wait. One other reason not to file early. They do means testing when you're under age 67, under full retirement age. And in 2026, if you make about $24,500 a year, you go over that threshold, they start withholding $1 in benefits for every $2 you go over. You get up to about 70,000 or so of. Sorry, my microphone turned off for a second there. You get up to about $70,000 or so of income, and they're just going to withhold your entire paycheck. So there's no point in filing early if you're still working, you have a good income, and you maybe really don't need it yet. Okay. This will also apply to spousal benefits, which we'll talk about later, and survivor benefits, which we will also talk about later. Speaking of spousal benefits, how do they work? Well, your spousal benefit is 50% of your spouse's primary insurance amount, so their age 67 amount, if you apply at age 67. Okay, my wife Crystal and I am about 5 years older than her. So when I'm 67, she'll be 62. If I have filed at 67, could she take a spousal benefit at 62? She could, but she's going to get the smallest spousal benefit she could because she took it at 62. If she waits till she turns 67, now she gets 50% of whatever I'm getting from a full retirement age standpoint. Important note, she does not get half of the extra credits for waiting till 70. The spouse with the smaller benefit only gets half of the primary insurance amount, the age 67 amount. So just please remember that. So you can see the example here, married couple, the person with the bigger benefit has $2,400. They file at full retirement age. They're getting $2,400. The spouse waits till they turn full retirement age. They file as the spouse. Now they're getting $1,200. Household is now getting $3,600 a month from Social Security. Let's say you have your own benefit. Okay. You have your own benefit. You also have the opportunity for a spousal benefit. Social Security does not play shell games with you. They don't play find the benefit. They don't do that at all. What they'll do is simply say, hey, look, Matt, your wife made a ton of money. You didn't. And so here's what you can get by filing as her spouse. Here's what you can get by filing on your own. We're assuming you want the bigger benefit, which in that case might be filing as Crystal's spouse. That's what they'll do. Okay. They're not going to try to hide the benefit. They're not going to try to force you into a smaller benefit or anything like that. Okay. Coordination. I get this question a lot from people. And the question is essentially this. Okay, I'm going to file at 62, and then my spouse is going to file. They have a much bigger benefit. I'm going to wait till 67, and then I'm going to file as their spouse at 67. So I'm going to get half of their benefit, right? Wrong. Remember what I said earlier. If you file early, your decision to file follows you. It affects not only your own benefit, but it affects what you would get as a spouse. In this case, instead of 2,400 and 1,200, like we talked about last time, the most that spouse is going to get right here where I'm moving my mouse is $820. They're not going to get the full 1,200. Why? Because they filed for their own benefit at 62. That's why. Okay, file at full retirement age. You lock in the opportunity for your spouse to get that bigger benefit. Who's the person who files at full retirement age? Maybe it's the person with the bigger benefit. Maybe not. Maybe it's the person with the smaller benefit, knowing that that bigger benefit's coming later. We'll figure that out in your Social Security analysis. You'll see how that works. All right, coordinating benefits. Here's a great example. So one benefit's 2,400, the other one's 2,000. Well, 2,000, of course, is more than half of the 2,400. So what happens at full retirement age for that person with the $2,000 benefit? Well, what's going to happen is Social Security is going to say, take the $2,000 benefit. It's that simple. Just take the bigger benefit. Okay. You're not going to get a spousal benefit on top of that. Remember, one benefit at a time. One benefit at a time. Okay, divorces. Let me talk about divorces here. I have a kind of a funny story for you here. Goes over better in front of a room full of people, but you'll get it. You'll get a chuckle out of this. So, gosh, almost 15 years ago, I gave this talk in Omaha, Nebraska. A friend of mine's an advisor there. He asked me if I'd be willing to come in if he paid for me to come in and do it. And I said, sure, absolutely. Let's make it happen. So he fills up this huge room with people, and I give the Social Security talk. I'm talking to people after the event, and this wonderful lady comes up to me and says, hey, can I ask you a question? Sure, go ahead. She said, I've got this friend who has 3 exes. What should she, you talked about divorces a little bit. What do you think she should do? And I just said, well, let me kind of go back to what we reviewed in the presentation. First thing is, how many of those marriages lasted at least 10 years? All of them. Wow. Okay. Is your friend currently unmarried? Yes. Yes, she is. Okay. Are the ex-husbands in her case all at least 62 years old or older? Yes. Okay. Was the last divorce at least 2 years ago? Yes. Great. Here's what your friend should do. She should go down to Social Security or talk to them over the phone and say, look, here is divorce decrees, the whole thing. What do I get depending on which ex I file under? What do I get? And what they'll do is say, here's the biggest one. That's the one you should file under. And do you know what she said? That's what I'm going to do. So she was talking about herself, right? But in a nutshell, that's how the divorce spouse benefit works. Married at least 10 years. Believe it or not, folks, one of the advantages of California's kind of slow family court system is that you can file for divorce in, say, year 8, and maybe 18 months later, you're still married because the divorce decree has not been finalized yet. We actually helped someone with this a few years ago. They were kind of running up on 9.5 years, and we said, hold on a second. If you guys can slow play this another 6 months, now you've set up the person with the lower income to have some of the divorce benefits. And they were willing to do it as a couple. They were willing to slow it down a little bit to make sure that happened. So planning can take unusual turns at times when you're talking about Social Security. Okay, I am not going to run you through the example here, but I do want you to look at the last 3 bullet points on this slide. So The person with the big benefit, okay, you got divorced a long time ago, that ex now files for a spousal benefit based on your work record, okay? And you were the big income earner. Your benefit doesn't get affected, so you don't know, right? You don't see suddenly, oh my gosh, my benefit dropped, right? What happened? If you have remarried and your current spouse is getting a benefit based on your work record, they aren't affected either. And flip it around. Maybe you're the person who is the high income earner and you have three exes. None of those other exes are ever going to know either. Nobody's going to know because if you're married at least 10 years, divorces at least 2 years ago, currently unmarried, and oh, by the way, if all the exes are 62 or older, it doesn't even matter if they filed, Social Security will pay the benefit. They don't take it out of your check. Okay. Now, some people will be like, oh man, no wonder the system's got problems, blah, blah, blah. Well, the reality there is they don't do that out of the kindness of their heart. They do that out of there from a security standpoint because we all know some marriages do not end well at all. And the last thing someone needs, from a physical safety standpoint is to have that ex show up in their life again. So again, if you're in this situation, we're happy to help, but just know your ex will never find out unless it gets back to him through the grapevine, right? You tell your kids, they tell your ex, right? That's the only way they're going to find out. Okay. I don't think we need to really talk too much more about that. Let's jump into survivor benefits. Okay, your survivor benefit depends on two key things. One is, when did the person who died originally file? Did they file early? Did they file at full retirement age? Did they wait and get some delayed credits? And then you as the survivor, when do you file for the spouse for the survivor benefit? That's number two. Okay, those two things will determine what the actual benefit is that you get as a surviving spouse. Okay, so here's an example. We got that $2,400 benefit again. Okay, that person dies at age 70. They waited till 70. They filed. They never got their first check, and then they died. Okay, $2,400. What happens? Well, if I'm the spouse who survived and I wait till full retirement age, I get the full $2,976. It's that simple. They waited till 70. I waited till full retirement age. I get the full amount they were getting. It's that simple. Now, what if they filed at 62? Well, if they had filed at 62, the most I could ever get would be just about $2,000 a month. And the reason why is, you look at this chart here, again, a lot of numbers on this chart. Don't worry about trying to memorize it. But when you look at right here, you can see at age 63, if the person with the bigger benefit filed at 62, for the survivor, the most they can get caps out at age 63. You're done at that point. Won't go up at all. Look over here on the right. What if you'd waited till 70? Well, hey, you know what? Full retirement age, here's that 100% of the 2,976. So your big takeaway on survivor planning with Social Security, if it's important to make sure you've set up your spouse as well as possible, and you're the person with the bigger benefit, you're the person who waits. Because that's the benefit that's going to continue to pay once you have passed away. When can you take a benefit? It said it on the previous slide, but just to reinforce it, at age 60, that's the soonest you can take it. Unless you're disabled, you can take it as early as 50. Don't forget what I said about the withholding before. Remember the means testing? If you're over about 25,000, they start holding benefits back. It applies to survivor benefits as well. So if you're working, you're 60, your spouse dies, yeah, you're probably not going to file, right? You're probably not. Okay. The other thing at the bottom of the page, you do have to have been married at least 9 months, except for in the case of an accident. I should have mentioned this with spousal benefits as well. Let's say you get married later in life. Well, you can qualify as the spouse to get the spousal benefit. You just have to wait a year before they'll start paying out spousal benefits for you. So that we've had couples get married who were together for a long time because they didn't realize Social Security, you have to be legally married. It's no common law stuff when it comes to Social Security. Legally married. Okay. All right. Survivor benefits, just like we talked about with spousal benefits, you get the bigger of the two benefits. Okay. The bigger benefit, if that's the survivor benefit, that's the one that keeps going. The smaller benefit, that's the one that goes away. It stops paying. Here's an example where a household, while they're both alive, is getting, you can see my mouse right here, getting about $4,200 a month right here. Okay. Doesn't matter who dies. One of them dies. Doesn't matter, right? That smaller benefit stops. Household income now drops to about 3,000. You know what's not going to drop? It's your tax bill, because starting, about 12 months later, you're going to have to start filing as single, even though your income is probably still pretty comparable to where it was when you were both alive. And then the other thing that's going to get you most likely is your Medicare premiums are going to go through the roof, because the brackets for the Medicare means testing for singles, they're cliff brackets. You go $1 into the next bracket, you're now paying more for your Medicare. And they are not as generous as they are for married couples. So if you've done a lot of planning and you've done a lot of saving and you've set up your income really well, just know that, that surviving spouse, yeah, this will go down. Their tax bill won't. And that's something we help people plan for quite often. Okay, divorces, again, married at least 10 years. Yes, you qualify for a survivor benefit if you're married at least 10 years. Keep in mind, you have to be currently unmarried. But if you did get remarried, if you got married after the age of 60, you still can get that bigger divorce spouse benefit. We had a client for years who insisted she would never get married but remarried before 60 because she wanted to preserve this benefit. And then she married her long lost college sweetheart at like 58. So it worked out. It worked out. But survivor benefit, if you got divorced, hey, marriage lasted at least 10 years, currently unmarried, or if you're married, you got married after the age of 60. Okay, planning. Ken said it in his introduction really well. I've kind of hinted at it. Let me just really drive this point home. Okay. Your Social Security benefit, unfortunately, a lot of people will make the decision based on a break-even analysis, which, folks, I've been teaching these classes now for a long time. I'm a national Social Security advisor. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm a chartered life underwriter, right? I've studied this stuff. I've never met anyone who said they had done the break-even analysis, but had also done a tax analysis and also looked at what happens if you lived 105. I have never met someone who took it that far in their own planning. So from a planning standpoint, the decision to take Social Security needs to be weighed against a variety of factors. Longevity for you, longevity for your spouse, taxation, impact on other income sources, impact on other investment sources. People say, oh, what about the time value of money? I could take the benefit early and I could invest it. Okay, you could, but are you kneecapping yourself for some of these other issues that are going to come up later on? Do you want to pay more or less in California state income tax? Do you want to pay more or less in federal income tax? You tell me. If you want to pay more, great. I'll show you how to pay more taxes. Let's go ahead and do that. I've never met anybody who wants to do that. Okay. Never once. Never once. All right. Coordinating the benefits. Bottom line. And I love the bottom line. Bottom line, take the biggest benefit last. Let me give you a couple examples of what I'm getting at here. So your spouse dies, and in this case, maybe you had a smaller benefit than your spouse. So your benefit's 1,000. Your spouse who passed, they have a much larger benefit. How does it really work? What should you really do? Well, what you could do is you could take your own smaller benefit at 62, and yeah, you get the reduction and all that. But now here's one of those, I don't know if you want to call it an exception, but here's one of those exceptions to some of the things I said earlier. You take it at 62, wait till full retirement age, and then switch over to the full survivor benefit. Remember before when I said if you take it at 62, it follows you no matter what? That is absolutely true for spousal benefits, for your own benefit. For survivor benefits, though, that does not apply. You could take your own benefit early. In this case, you would because it's smaller, and then switch at 67. Please don't forget the withholding, the means testing I talked about will still apply. So it might not even make sense to take the smaller benefit early. Let's flip it around. Your benefit is bigger than the benefit that your spouse had when they, or was projected to get when they passed away. Well, okay, take the survivor benefit early. Take it at 60. Get 10 years of income from it. And then let your own benefit get as big as possible and take that benefit when you turn 70. Doesn't sound too complicated, but it's something that a lot of people forget about when life actually happens. That's one of the values we bring to our clients is we're here not just to help you make a good informed financial decision. We're also here to help you navigate those difficult life transitions when they occur. So Social Security and remarriage at any age will cancel out the divorced spouse benefits unless that marriage ends as well. Okay. Remarriage before the age of 60, from a survivor standpoint, you are now married to your current spouse, and that's whose benefits you're going to coordinate with. But if you get remarried after the age of 60, when it comes to the survivor planning, all bets are off at that point. You could use the previous spouse or the current spouse. Doesn't matter. You can, again, take the benefit that's going to do the most for you. If you're thinking about longevity, if you're thinking about making sure, hey, the last person standing isn't going to have to worry about money, the key then is the person with the biggest benefit, they're the person who waits. Could the other person take at 62, maybe full retirement age, maybe somewhere in between? Sure, absolutely. Maybe wait till 70. You bet. Absolutely. But the person with the bigger benefit, if you're concerned about making sure income is there in the case of longevity, you got to take that bigger benefit. So compare your benefits, bigger benefit last. Don't get remarried before 60. Okay, advice by marital status. Let me just run through this real quick. If you're currently married, coordinate, coordinate, coordinate. Every now and then we'll meet someone who says, I only want to do this on my own. I don't want to talk to my spouse. You need to talk to your spouse. Okay, you really do. 2, if you're divorced, do you understand what your divorced spouse benefits are? Let me give you a little example of this. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law, they divorced 25 years ago, long before I ever met them. They had been married for 20 years, though. So when she went to go file, she told me that she wasn't eligible for anything other than her own benefit. And I said, well, that can't be right. That just can't be. You were married for 20 years. So call him up and tell him, yeah, I was married for 20 years. Here's his social security number. And just ask him, what am I eligible for while he's alive? And what am I eligible for once he passes away? So she did that. They still told her, no, you're not eligible for anything. I said, okay, fine. Go in and talk to him. They told her this face to face. So she comes to San Antonio to visit, really to see the grandkids, right? But I'm like, hey, let's go talk to Social Security. So we go down there together and we sit down. They got the bulletproof glass and all that. This young lady's on the other side. She's like, yeah, you're not eligible for anything. And I looked at the young lady. I said, hey, unless the rules have changed, I'm not sure that that's entirely accurate. Is there a chance we could talk to a supervisor? She said, sure. Waited a few minutes. Now, folks, I got to tell you, that few minutes was a very long few minutes for me because I could just see my mother-in-law looking at me out of the corner of my eye. And she was looking at me and thinking, my daughter married a moron. I could just see it all over her face. And I just calmly looked straight ahead. The supervisor comes out. He's got 2 sheets of paper, puts them down in front of us, and says, I am so sorry. Yes, while your ex is alive, and he highlighted it, here is what you're eligible for while he's alive, and then here's what you'd be eligible for when he passes away. I'm so sorry for the confusion. But the reason I'm telling you that is A, to make sure you understand, sometimes divorce planning can be a little messy, but I'm also telling you because if you ever call Social Security or you interact with them and the answer you get doesn't make sense, please ask to speak to a supervisor. I know it sounds mundane, I know it sounds trivial, but the supervisors actually do know what they're doing when it comes to Social Security. Sometimes those kids on the phones, those frontline workers, they're kind of rushed into the job, and maybe they aren't that experienced. The person you're talking to just isn't that experienced. They do a good job overall, but if you get a piece of information that doesn't sound accurate, make sure you ask. Make sure you ask. Okay, if your spouse died, bigger benefit last. Okay, bigger benefit last. Remember, that's the exception to the file early doesn't, will follow you, right? That was the exception I talked about. Never married. I want to take a minute and touch about on never married. Pretty much every one of these webinars we do, we get one or two people who have never been married. And years ago, people used to say to me, yeah, I didn't really feel like this applied to me because everything you talked about was for couples. Well, I got to tell you, I really disagree with that assessment. And the reason why is it all applies to you. It's just you don't have this wild card of the other person and their benefit in your planning. You still need to look at your own longevity. You still need to look at your income. You still need to look at the balance of the Social Security compared to everything else. You still need to look at your taxes. It all still applies. Does the spousal benefit apply? No. Does the survivor benefit apply? No. But everything else does. So if you're single and you're thinking, I don't know if this was a good use of my time, it was a good use of your time. It absolutely was. Never been married? Hey, maybe it makes sense to wait, maybe not. And then if your spouse has passed away, what's available for you in your early 60s? All right, planning. I said 105, right? But if you're conservative in your approach to retirement, which is a cautious approach to retirement, you want to plan at least to 95 in what you're doing. Inflation adjusted income as long as you live. Let me touch on this. A lot of people will say, well, Matt, Social Security is going to go away. They're looking at a funding shortfall. It's going bankrupt. How many of you have heard someone say it's going bankrupt, right? We've all heard that. Well, bankruptcy in Social Security does not mean that your income stops. It just means that the trust fund is at zero. And 15 years ago, they used to say benefits would drop by a third if the trust fund got down to zero. Now they're saying it's going to drop by 22 or 23% if the trust fund gets down to zero. What changed? Millennials came into the workforce. Gen Z is an even bigger population than the millennials are. All you baby boomers on the call, you're not the biggest generation anymore in terms of head count. Millennials are number 2. The Gen Z kids are number 1. You all are number 3. So all these young people started coming into the workforce and they're paying the payroll tax. Social Security is designed to be funded by the payroll tax. So do we have a potential shortfall in about 10 years? We do. Are there solutions to that shortfall? There absolutely are. And it's most likely a combination of a bunch of little adjustments that need to be done as opposed to massively overhauling the system. So what do I mean by that? Well, the payroll tax. Right now, the payroll tax is only on the first, I want to say 190,000 or so of your income. If they opened up the payroll tax to a higher number, some people have said make it on all income. That solves the problem in and of itself. That's just changing the payroll tax. Could they change how cost of living adjustments are calculated? They could. Could they say full retirement age is now 68? They could. By the way, that's what they did in the 70s. Full retirement age went from 65 to 67. The oldest person who was affected by that when that went into place was 15 years old. It didn't affect anybody who had filed at 65 or was planning on filing at 65. So if history is any kind of guide for us, there's reforms that can be made to shore up the system and make it viable again for another 50 to 70 years. It's just, where's the political will to get it done? If you're very concerned about this, the best thing you can do is handwrite, I know it sounds old-fashioned, handwrite a letter to your congressperson every single week. Go talk to them. Go talk to their staff. Become a pain in the butt about it, because that's when they're going to start to take it seriously. And believe me, no politician on the planet wants to be seen as the person who killed Social Security or Medicare. They don't. So Inflation adjusted income for as long as you live. Hopefully, we made a good point about the decisions you're making today will absolutely determine lifestyle later on in life. Ken talked about the 5 pillars in his introduction. Those 5 pillars again: income, investments, insurance, taxes, estate planning. They all connect when it comes to what's my income look like? How much am I actually taking home versus what I'm paying in taxes? What happens when I start declining? When we do end of life planning with our clients, we're not just saying, hey, day you die, this is what's going to happen. We back it up and say, okay, well, hold on now. We don't know when we're going to pass away. We also don't know how we're going to pass away. Is it going to be quick and sudden? Or is it going to be some kind of chronic illness situation where for 3 to 5 to 7 or maybe 10 years before I died, I needed to have a lot of help? How do I fund that without crippling my spouse's life afterwards, or without becoming an undue burden on my kids? Because folks, if you're planning on living to, if you're conservative in your approach and you're planning on living to 95 or 100 in your planning, you need to plan for your body slowing down and needing some help in those last 3 to 5 years at least. You got to plan for it. How do you do it? That's part of the conversation. Delaying benefits means more money later on. Coordinate, coordinate, coordinate. And then finally, I know I've said it a bunch, I'll say it one more time. The Social Security analysis is designed to show you what your cash flow looks like just from Social Security. That is not the basis of a decision on Social Security. The basis for making the decision on Social Security needs to include your other income sources, your investments, your insurance, your tax plan, and your estate plan. You have to look at the whole picture. The simplistic break-even analysis doesn't work. It never works. So thank you. I know we're at 28 after, so we're wrapping up just a minute or two early. We had a lot of people on tonight's call, so thank you for taking the time to join us. I know we have a couple questions about how do we share this afterwards. So you'll probably remember I said I was recording this. We always record these when we do them. It should be no later than Monday. I would think that this will be on our YouTube channel, and we'll send out an email to everyone to make sure you've got this available to you. If you really want to dig in on this, read the book. Read the book. It is designed to be a quick read. It is not a textbook. Okay, it's designed to get you thinking about these are big considerations. This is how all this stuff starts to fit together. That's what that book is about. The other materials that are in the book give you a good primer on Social Security, tell you a little bit about the firm, a little bit about me and Ken, right? But the key, folks, really, really is making sure that you take this information and you do something with it. That's the key. What are you going to do with it? So, looks like, Ken, you had all the questions. Did you see? Oh, thank you, Ronnie. Did you see, or I'm sure that's Jeanette. Did you see any like themes in the questions or anything? I know we're right at time, but
a common one, but the backsies rule. Do you want to talk about,
oh
oops, I
yeah,
maybe shouldn't have
yeah,
planned.
yeah. So they have their rescission rule at Social Security. You have the option to rescind your decision to file, but you have to do it within 12 months of when you filed. And here's the catch: you got to write out a check for a lump sum of everything they paid you. So some of you, that's not an issue. Yeah, whatever, I'll do it, right? But for some of you, it might be an issue. So if you felt like you made a mistake, A, are you still within the first year? B, can you write the check? That's what it comes down to.
So another question is there are obviously benefits for delaying.
Mhm.
My health is good. Is there ever a reason in which I should claim, me and my spouse both claim at 62?
Absolutely. So, it depends on, again, how you view it. But if you've retired early, one of the things we do when we stress test out your income plan is we're looking at how does the income plan affect the asset management or the investment management plan. And so if we file at 62 because we retired early, assuming you have a sizable benefit, the fact that maybe between the two of you, you're pulling, over 8 years, maybe you're pulling, 80,000 a year, even with a reduced benefit. Um, that's 960,000 adjusted for inflation that didn't have to come from other sources. So the impact of that analysis could tell us, based on your other savings, right, that yeah, taking it 62 absolutely makes sense for you in that scenario. But again, we got to look at the whole picture. I mean, we can't do a time value of money analysis and comparison if we can't see everything.
Okay. Another one just came in. What is the max amount that Social Security will pay out?
I want to say for 67 right now, it is 4,000, I want to say $89.
Yeah, 4,100 is what I spitball. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's right in that. Now that's age 67, and that's assuming you were top of the income brackets, if you will, for 35 years. Keep in mind, 8% delayed credits get added on top of that. So if you're a high income earner, yeah, plan for about 4,100 a month. But if you're waiting, it's 8% on top of the 4,100. That, by the way, is simple interest. It's not compound interest. So if you wait the full 3 years, you get 124%. You don't get, the compounding rate.
Well, everybody else, you did get an email maybe about 15, 20 minutes ago. It is the questionnaire that will help us do some pre-work for your Social Security analysis. Uh, Go ahead, log in. Again, all we're trying to collect are those key data points, is your current age, as well as what are you entitled to at 67, and then just some other areas of concern that maybe we want to talk about in our one-on-one meeting. But thank y'all for your time. There's nothing more valuable than that. Looks like everybody got their meals as scheduled, so very good.
All
Outside
right.
of that, Matt, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We're looking forward to working with all of you. And please follow up with me and Ken if you have any questions. And again, we're always looking for feedback. I know we've been doing this for a long time, but we're always looking for ways to get better too. So would be really appreciate it.
All right. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you, everyone.